cool. Welcome to the place, unlike any other.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It is March 2026, a very futuristic year. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm in my dead season, so I get to be lazy.
As far as your job goes, I guess.
Yeah, as far as the real big girl job.
Okay. So what do you usually do on your dead season, as you say?
Usually I just hang out and do nothing, but this year I'm gonna be productive.
Ooh. What makes you want to do that? There's usually some kind of impetus, right? So what is it for you?
Mostly I want to be more productive because I want to actually study Japanese this year. But also, right, I have this project and the YouTube, so I actually have things planned out to do.
You hear that, everybody? It turns out that adding responsibilities to your life makes you a more responsible person. More news at 11. Yeah,
for better or worse, you're right.
Yeah, I'm saying it facetiously because I've definitely spent at least a decade trying to avoid as many responsibilities and then suffering for it. So not recommended if any younglings are listening. And if any adults are listening, I'm assuming most of you have already solved this problem and I'm the only dumbass here. So, but,
I mean, you said it, not me.
But anyways, so there's a lot been going on. We could literally go like a million ways. Maybe not literally, but maybe yes, a million ways.
We could, but yeah. I want to be kind of brief on some of the things because we're not experts, and I don't want to say anything that causes us to have problems. Facts. But I guess, what are your thoughts on the current news of we're at war?
All right, well, you're right, we're not experts, but in a way though, I think our generation, because we're approximate in age, I think in our generation, we could draw like a direct line to the whole 9/11 thing as far as not the event itself necessarily, although again I could say stuff that gets me in trouble immediately, but anyways, the line that could be drawn is essentially, that led to the war on terror and that led to American involvement in the Middle East, and this most recent situation in Iran is essentially the US once again involved in the Middle East, right? So even though we're not experts, we certainly have been kind of interacting with this little tendency that our country has.
Well, I wanted to bring it up, not as, like I said, because we're not experts. I didn't want to bring it up as experts, but like you said, we're relatively the same age. So war in the Middle East has been such a big part of our growing up and even now adult lives, even though it's not the same war in the Middle East, but that's been a lot of American, I'll say war policy.
Yeah, and I think the part that would get us in trouble is the part where we say, is this actually American war policy? Is it actually American? Perhaps it is the war policy of another country. And honestly, that was my thought, because it seems like there's been so much fervor against Iran. And, they have a litany of reasons. So it's not... So, even to an educated person, it would never seem totally unfounded.
Yeah, this is a both things are bad at the same time kind of situation. We're not saying that the Iranian government was good, but I don't know if it was the US and Israel's place to step in.
I'm gonna pretend I did not hear that word. I'm joking. Yes, that country, I should say. Yeah. And man, there's so many ways to comment on this. But I mean, yeah, I would say that this is just kind of you could draw a straight line from all those times that you would hear on the news, both left-wing and right-wing news about Iran this, Iran that, Iran assassination attempts or whatever, stuff that just didn't really make that much sense, and all of a sudden now we're here.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and then there's so many components to it. There's even forget conspiracy theories just based off of local control of the Middle East or something like this, but there's also the conspiracy theories involving freaking religious conspiracy theories, end of times. There's even to the conspiracy theories fans, there's a guy who was in literal contact with a alien, essentially UFO angel spirit thing, and this was a few years ago, but he literally basically timed it to around this time that it would happen. And actually, if I recall, and I don't know if this could have been totally photoshopped, but in the files, in the epi files, there was a thing where there was a one message apparently saying that are we still starting World War III on February 6th, 2026? Like it was just like on schedule. Obviously, didn't happen on February on that date, but it's like there was just a lot of heat. I want to say around this time, and you know what? I think there is one thing that we can speak more generally of, which is like the overall like emotional reaction to it. Like it just seems like people are getting kind of drained. Like the epi files themselves, if you really wrestled with them, you were probably cooked just looking at all the stuff going on in it. I'm assuming most people just kind of started memeing on them and didn't really take them seriously, but I can't really blame them because it's like pretty bad stuff.
I'll be honest, it's bad stuff, but also like I can't imagine it's been in the zeitgeist for so long and no one's like quote unquote done anything about it, that memeing and coping techniques have just become king when dealing with them.
Yeah, and I would say like I love memes. I'm a big fan of memes, but the danger there is something along the lines of it's a kind of programming where it's like a kind of learned helplessness, right? Like the whole thing about coping is that, you know, if you need it to get past something, then whatever. But if you're actively using it as a kind of denial system, well, denying things doesn't really help fix them in any way. So it's that's my main concern, is that people are just going to keep memeing it in order to cope with it, in order to adjust with it. And I would you know, I'll bring it back to my sombrero. I think in Mexico there's a lot of that as well, where there's a lot of harsh things going on. There's a lot of heavy stuff going on constantly, and the response is something like, well, we can balance it out with you know, this level of freedom, like a little modicum of happiness and an overall general stability in our lives, and everything is fine until it isn't, and so nothing gets done. This isn't just Mexico. I'm assuming a lot of countries that have any issues whatsoever. It's very easy to just kind of close yourself off from your community, from the experiences of others, from especially the suffering of others, because we're all kind of jealous even of our own suffering. Like we have to protect our own suffering to some extent because we are suffering. I'm not discounting that. But it creates a kind of psychological protection system that ends up that results in the, I don't want to say rotting, maybe rotting is a bad word, but maybe in the negligence of the overall system of society as a whole. And there are groups that are actually smart enough, even though we like to pretend that they're all idiots and they're all stupid and we're smarter than them, and if we just got together we could outsmart them and we could blah blah blah. But there are actually very intelligent people who know this and use this as an active bait and switch hunting technique. And maybe that is my message. Just don't be so quick to cut yourself off from the larger community, whether it be your local community or even the world community. And I know a lot of people are actually really advanced with that. Like they're even better at it than I am. But I mean, this stuff is just so brutal that the wincing reaction is there, and sometimes you never go back and look at it. You just stay winced, if that makes sense.
Well, that makes sense, because not to kind of go, not, I guess, a little bit philosophical, not everyone's built to be a witness.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we are, as they say, in interesting times or unprecedented times. And if you cut yourself off fully from being a witness, then it's not going to be good.
Yes. What is that that thing with the ostrich head in the sand type thing? Let's not do that. Okay. Any other topics that we could actually feel a little more confident speaking of?
Yeah, so I wanted to get that out of the way because not talking about it is kind of weird.
True.
And so what I wanted to focus on in this one is kind of tech for this episode.
Oh boy.
And so one of the reasons for that is, and this all folds in, but I want to start with my personal issue, which is, as you know, my iMac is 6 years old, so I'm in the market for a new computer because I'm a fancy bitch like that, and I upgrade every 6 years or so.
Keep in mind,
and I wanted to.
I was gonna say, keep in mind, like, if we were back home in the U.S., I would say like you upgrading every 2 years or every other year would put you in the fancy category. But out here, we out here fighting for our lives at times. So yeah, every 6 years, every half a decade upgrade, it's like, whoa, are you sure about that? You really need that? Are you good? Yes.
To be fair, I use Macs, so you don't. I mean, you are supreme fancy if you're updating every 2 years. You don't need to.
That's true. It's pricey. Yeah.
But I'm going for the Mac Mini this round, and I have ran into some interesting issues. Now I'll admit I'm not buying it just yet because, like you said, we're fighting for our lives out here. So I have a date for when I'm gonna buy it. But there's a, I don't want to say shortage because I think if you go to Apple, you can still buy it. But there's been an interesting kind of issue on the shelves
Yes,
of just
yes.
people buying them up for what did you say it was offline?
It's a open claw. Yeah, you've picked a terrible time, and I have a direct connection to this to your situation as well. But yeah, it's related. Just I mean, just I guess I'll just be brief. The let me see. There have been AI systems that you could use as assistants this whole time, and to be honest, this technology is quite old. Like essentially the moment you could do API calls to something like a ChatGPT, OpenAI, the nerds on Linux that they had already given them, for example, access to certain directories. But there was a programmer who was like, "That's not good enough. I want them to I want it to just control my entire computer," which is possible because now we have visual models, so they can actually see the screen. And if you just let them control, so in other words, it's not just a command line. Now you can move the mouse around and stuff. And so he's like, "I want that on my system." Up until this point, it's really just like a Linux hobbyists like project. It's not really a big deal. But the result has been that he made it so open source that a community formed and they have add-ons to it. And it's a security nightmare, to be honest. But people are still going with it. And anyway, the Mac Mini connection is that the Mac Mini, starting from the M1 chip, is a very low power consumption device, but it's very, very powerful. It's like, I'm not even a Mac fanboy, but around that time, you can ask anybody who would listen to me, I was hyping it up. I was shook. I was in shock at how good it is, and I was mad, but I was also so impressed. And I was like the best Apple salesman for like a couple years because it was like just so good. And it still is, frankly, to the point where I'm just like, bro, just get an M1, even though we're about to be on M5, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
This
anyways.
ties into his second comment, but we'll go on for this one for a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, long story short, a lot of people who, even if they're not very technically savvy, they're buying the systems and loading them up with some quantized models. This is what they should be doing. I realize, though, I know someone who did this, and he falls into that category I just described. And all he's doing is just connecting it via API keys back up to the cloud, which in my mind is like, well, then that means all the heavy lifting is being done on the cloud. So you don't really need like a Mac Mini. All you really need is just like literally any low consumption computer, and then it just needs to have barely enough RAM for whatever you had in mind. And then all the LLM computations are happening in the cloud. But for the technical person, what it was supposed to be was, if you have a Mac Mini that has as much RAM as you could possibly fit, because it's shared between like its GPU, it's not separate, in other words. So that RAM could also be used as a GPU, which is what the LLMs use. So you could have a quantized version of a model. So for example, they get really small. Sometimes they're even like 1 gigabyte. But the smaller they are, the dumber they are. So ideally, you'd probably want at least 16 gigabytes. So you could get like a 12 gigabyte model, drop it into the Mac, and now it's running totally locally. This was the original wish, the original purpose of getting the Mac Mini. So now you have like a 12 gigabyte quantized model on your device, and it's running totally locally. It's not pinging OpenAI, nor Claude, nor anyone. And it's smart enough to complete a lot of tasks. And of course, you could even connect it to the internet to what you're supposed for it to download stuff. Oh, and also OpenClaw has a really cool thing where you could connect it to you connect to a bot. So if you have a Telegram bot, by the way, everyone should hop on Telegram. The fact that it has so much heat on it tells you everything you need to know about it. Telegram or these other applications, or WhatsApp, I suppose, as well. I'm not telling people to hop on WhatsApp, but I'm saying that the OpenClaw supports WhatsApp. And so now you could essentially just message your computer from your device, and it's connecting to your Mac Mini or whatever device. But again, people are using it wrong. I'm pretty sure like people just saw the meme of buying a Mac Mini, and so they're buying the Mac Mini, but they're not really loading it up with the local LLM. They're just plugging in their API keys to connect up to the cloud. So there's almost no reason to do it. I mean, you can say like it's still a low power draw device, so maybe that's why you would do it. But again, you don't need a Mac Mini for that. But now you are the
Well,
victim of this. So
I'm the victim of this because I think like what you're saying makes sense to do it, but they're buying the base model, which is 16 gigs, which is good, but it's what 256 hard drive. And
mhm.
so I've been looking at it to decide like how much RAM and stuff like that. And it talks about running like local LLM stuff and all that. And it recommends not using the base model. So that's why I think that they're like running it online, on the cloud because like the base model's not really built for that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the chip's powerful enough, but the other specs are not.
I think a technical person could make a lot of configurations work. But I think my point is like a lot of these people I don't think are actually technical. A lot of these people I think they just saw that this was a meme, and so they're buying that specific model, like you're saying. But I mean, if you gave me literally even like a laptop from like 2016, let me see, maybe 2000, let's say 2020. If you gave me a laptop from 2020, maybe like a Ryzen chip, I could probably make that work, and it would be way cheaper.
Well,
But
well, yeah, that's what I mean is like you could make it work if you're actually a technical person,
yeah,
but I think these people can't, so they're buying just the cheapest model and setting up from whatever they look at on YouTube, probably.
yeah. And again, the one of the few people that I know that have done this, because it's still even amongst normies, this isn't really a normie thing. It's just that the real normies are suffering for it. And yeah, I have a story about that too, like I was saying. But they're not using it right. It doesn't have to be this way, and now you're now you're trapped. So what's your move then? Because it sounds like, yeah, you're having some trouble here.
So, this is information that doesn't like dox me or anything. I get my big fancy paycheck that I'm gonna buy a computer off of in a couple of weeks. And so I'm gonna be an Apple fanboy for a week and look at the new launches. It's something I've never done.
Like the M5? Is that the M5?
Yeah, this week Apple is supposed to be doing like big news drops. And usually I honestly don't care cuz I am in the Mac ecosystem, but I am not a fanboy. But if the Mac Mini is off, I'm looking at it because there should be, like you said, the M5 drop, which I know will be more expensive, but like I said, I'm being a fancy bitch and updating my computer, so I might go for it.
I'd be honestly scared about the new prices. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm scared, but like I said, I have money to play with. So
Okay.
we'll see what it looks like. But because usually, like the Apple rumors this time around, if I checked correctly, are like a cheaper MacBook again. But I don't know if that's not gonna have like the best chips. And then they're gonna upgrade to some things to M5 maybe.
I haven't looked at any of the rumors, but just it seems like the general intelligent pattern would be something like release an M4 again on a lot of the devices, but then just add like better battery, better something or other, like better. In other words, make it hardware, because the chips, man, the chip shortage is so real. It's real.
Oh yeah, the chip shortage is real. What I'm hoping for is honestly what I had hoped for was because I heard there was a new launch coming with sales, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to get what I want. So
yeah, this is what happened to me. So I'm greedy from the tech perspective. So I was looking earlier, I think, yeah, earlier this year, maybe last year actually. I was looking for a device that essentially I could root, that was modern, that had like good cooling, that had video out, that had a headphone jack, and that had a micro SD card extension. That was a mobile device. And that doesn't sound too crazy, but yeah, the whole combination of which is fairly difficult, it turns out. And when I asked the AI oracles, one of them suggested a device called the Retroid Pocket 5, which is like a emulation station, and I'm so happy with it. I'm so stupidly happy with it. It's like it like triggers like the boy in me of holding like a PSP or something, but the screen is beautiful, blah blah blah. But it can also literally run Linux. So it can run Android, it can dual boot Android and Linux, which is insane for someone like me. Anyways, I'll stop hyping it up, but you guys should definitely check it out. Or maybe don't check it out, because it turns out, I was also going to come into some money. So I was like, let me look into what else we have like in this category. So there's a Retroid Pocket 6, and the chip on it is like not the latest one. But the way it works in the emulation world is if a chip's been out for a while, that's actually better because the nerds will make custom drivers for it to make it more stable or give it more features. Oh, and also it can be rootable. So based. I love this device. But anyways, the Retroid Pocket 6. And I was like, well, I guess maybe, I was thinking like you. I was like, I'll buy it like eventually. Like, who cares? And I shit you not, this literally happened less than 24 hours ago. So I'm looking at it. I'm on Mercari. I don't need to buy it brand new because brand new means I got to order it from China because they don't sell it out here. I have to order it from China, and then you got to pay the import fees, the duties and stuff. So I'm like looking at it on Mercari. Mercari is how would you describe it? Well, they have Mercari in the US too, but the Mercari out here is like amazingly convenient. Like you could pay anonymously, you could ship things like, in like a really fancy way. Anyways, so I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the price and I'm like, damn, that's pretty pricey. And I'm thinking, well, I guess if I sell my Retroid Pocket 5, which by the way, if you guys want to buy it, let me know, because man, I love that device, but yeah, I'll have to sell it. I was like, yeah, I'll get a Retroid Pocket 6. I could get like half of it back if I buy let's be clear, the Retroid Pocket 5 costs about 35K, which is cheap for a cell phone, but it doesn't have any, it's like a cell phone with no cell phone abilities on it. And the Retroid Pocket 6 was costing around 60K. For in USD, maybe that's like 250 and 450 maybe, or 500, something like that. Anyways, it's a little pricier than on the Chinese sites, but it's in Japan. All right. So I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the price. I'm like, all right. And then like I literally refresh the fucking page and it goes up by like 8K, which is like $50 probably. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, well, at least this other one is still the same price. And it was. And so I sleep on it. I wake up this morning. That price also went up. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck? Like this morning. I was like, what's going on? And then, so now I'm like, bruh. And now I'm looking around and someone else puts their Retroid Pocket 6 up for sale. Again, a lot higher than the baseline literally just like 12 hours ago or something. Yeah, 12 hours ago. And I'm like, what the fuck? But that guy explained it in his description. He's like, the company just announced that they're going to discontinue this model because they can't secure the RAM for it. The RAM on it was 12 gigabytes, which is on the high end, I guess. I know there are 16 gigabyte devices, but I think most people still don't have 12 gigabyte RAM mobile device. I could be wrong. And yeah. And the reason I want it up, my Retro Pocket 5 pretty much does like 80% of what I want. But the problem is the memory is low on it. It's like 128 gigabytes. And I could do an external storage, but gamers know like you don't want to load games up on the external. And for me, I'm like, I want to get the 256 one because I want to load it up with like Linux hacking stuff. So yes, I am directly affected too. I'm in the same situation as you. I guess the difference is though that this device is just going to be totally discontinued at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that they're going to make a sequel to it, I'm sure. But like, the way it's looking, the sequel is either going to cost a lot more, or it's going to be like prohibitively expensive, or it's not even going to release for like another year or 2 years on delay. Because I don't really see a solution for this RAM shortage situation. Like the way Apple works, from what they have said themselves, is they're like 5 year, they got like 5 to 10 year contracts with like RAM suppliers, and even then, I'm assuming they might be getting smashed on their new contract if it's coming up. So you still have some hope, like I'm assuming it would look bad for them to not have the new one in stock. But like for me, I don't have any hope. I'm like, dude, I gotta get this thing ASAP or else
yeah, there's no hope for you because the thing is like Apple has those agreements, but also like they're probably, most of these have already been built. So they're
true.
pretty safe for now.
What is the line? So right now it's March 3rd, March 2nd?
Yeah, so March 2nd. So later on today is going to be the first couple of announcements, but according to the rumors, it's mostly chip upgrades. Okay, well that's what we want, I guess, right, for the AI stuff. Yeah, and so what's going to happen is looks like the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pros are going to upgrade.
MacBook
and
Air,
so
MacBook Pro.
I might have to just go back to a laptop.
I think the clamshell mode is what's up, man. Like people, like the only issue ever with clamshell type stuff is just heat dissipation. But again, let me hype up Apple here. The heat dissipation on those things is excellent, you generally. So if you just have it like tilted, what is it? Like standing up, not like laying flat. And then you just plug in like a little dock. And everybody always wants to get these fancy docks, but literally you could get like a 1,600 yen, like less than $20 dock. And that will work. Like I have my work laptop is a Mac, and I just have like a really cheap dock, and it's connected to like my big monitor. I'll throw you a monitor, by the way. I mainly because I got to get rid of it, but it's a good monitor.
I'll think about it, because if I've been spoiled, I'm gonna go for a 4K monitor.
Oh man, you're going all
But
out.
I'm trying to go all out. See, I'm trying to be fancy, because this is basically, it's early, but it's basically my birthday present.
Okay. Happy early birthday. Yeah.
My birthday's not for months, but the money drop is now, so might as well do it early.
We're so poor-minded, bro. We're so broke. we're giving away how like our poverty, scarcity mindset. I'm saying.
I mean, that's the thing, because I don't think we're as broke as we talk. Honestly, I think it's a scarcity mindset of oh,
you're right. The money's you're right. No, you're right. The money's there. It's just like the way we think about. We gotta get this shit right now, bro. There's no hope. Like, dude, I think the poverty mindset is very like millennial as well, because we're so used to things going wrong that we're like, oh, if you're in the position to do it, you gotta do it then. I don't know what excuse I have, to be honest. I grew up like things were relatively secure, or maybe like they weren't, but maybe they weren't. I don't know. Because like clearly somewhere something broke. Like, but honestly, I do think it's about attitude more than anything. Like some people are just
definitely an attitude issue.
Yeah, like some people are just raised. It happens, right? Like people, there's plenty of money going around, but like their parents will like stress them out and like convince them that there isn't enough money going around. And I think now it's like we got the money, but it's like, oh man, I gotta buy this Indian food right now. Why wouldn't I buy this Indian food? That was me last night, by the way. Had to buy some Indian food.
I think it's also like one thing that kind of sticks when your parents do that kind of thing is a Mac purchase is $1,000 to $2,000, and so you're sitting there like, ooh, I gotta think about this real hard.
Yeah, that's exactly with me.
Even if you have the money to not worry about it too badly, you're just like, nope, I gotta think about it real hard.
We're messing up. We gotta publish more episodes, so eventually the $1,000 or $2,000 feels like it's $500 at least. That should be the goal.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, to switch gears a little bit, is still tech news, but what do you think about people being like, we're done with ChatGPT?
What's the reason they gave? Is it the war thing again?
Yeah, it's the war thing.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it is not really, I think honestly, it's not the war. I think that's the current excuse, because if you remember, we talked about this. ChatGPT wanted to introduce ads. It's $20 a month.
Right. And
like, I think, and if I remember correctly, the last update has been dwarfed by other companies.
Yeah. Speaking specifically about ChatGPT, because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff going on everywhere. First off, is anyone surprised? Like, you got like the government like holding ChatGPT, Sam Altman and like that company's like hand for years now. And they have, again, there's always a litany of reasons / excuses, right? It's like, okay, we can't lose to China, blah blah blah. Like we gotta have the strongest AI, which, by the way, on paper I support this way of thinking. But the problem is the moment you throw in a bunch of money at something, that doesn't guarantee anything. If anything, that probably just makes everybody relax a little more. As can be seen with what's it called? In China, they essentially were limited by the U.S. government sanctions on certain GPUs for their training, and they had to think smart. They used like some like math equations from like some Soviet mathematician, and apparently they just developed way better AI systems. I guess DeepSeek is what I'm thinking of. But even right now, they have everybody knows C Dance. I think they're on version 3, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know. Anyways, C Dance is like the best AI right now for video AI generation. And if I were to have an OpenClaw system, I'm in no rush to, because I don't really see the value in it for my use cases right now. But if I were to have one, I would also load a Chinese model. I would load Qwen, probably Qwen 3 VL, the visual language system. And so back to OpenAI, why, like, all that money is being thrown their way, and why is OpenAI not even a choice for me? That tells you, like, because of that money, OpenAI is basically set up to serve the US government. Like, why wouldn't it be? Like, they're the ones actively paying for it. And maybe these Chinese AI companies are also receiving grants from the Chinese government, but because a lot of it's happening at the university level, when these kids gotta put out their theses, they have to kind of keep it open source, or as open source as possible, and then they immediately get hired by reputable companies, like whatever company runs Douyin, ByteDance, I guess. And so you gotta get they get hired by ByteDance, they get hired by these other companies, and they're still in the open source culture, because when they were students, literally just 3 years ago, they were open sourcing all their stuff, and of course they'll bite back, But anyways, yeah. So there will be cases, and there have been cases now, where the Chinese AI companies will prevent their researchers from publishing their findings, and so a model like Dance is going to be closed source for the foreseeable future. But yeah, surprisingly, especially compared to American or even European AI companies, but especially American ones, a lot of their stuff is just secret. And maybe another part of this is this I can't confirm, but I would imagine a lot of the AI researchers just aren't doing as good research out in the West. And if they're going to be doing AI stuff, then just go to China, especially because, you know, a lot of the university population tends to be quote unquote Asian. So like, why not just go out there? They'll get all the love and support. So when we look at OpenAI itself, like, oh no, like when people are like, oh no, has OpenAI done this, and why have they forsaken us? It's like they were designed to forsake us from the beginning. Like they're receiving all that American money, and America is very jealous of its technology. Maybe that works for it. And people have been complaining about OpenAI because it presented itself as the end-all be-all, as the mainstream AI option for Americans. But when people started using it for boyfriends, and people started using it for like their own use cases, they were like, well, that's not what we want to do. And they literally eliminated that model. I think you saw that, right? I think
yeah, we talked about that a little bit too as well. But yeah, they fully eliminated that model.
Yeah, so they're clearly not really there to serve the regular consumer as their primary objective. We're not sponsored by anybody, but I would say currently, like, the Claude Anthropic, that's usually like the AI, no, the coder people will lean towards that for some reason. To be honest, I don't know why they consider it to be so superior. They might just have a better plug and play system for it. And then Gemini is basically used almost I think it's gonna start being the default, because I bet Google's just gonna want to include it the same way they became the default for searching the internet. I'm assuming they want to become like the normie tier AI. And then OpenAI was quite advanced, and the API system on it was actually really good. You could access old models, but then they stopped letting you access a lot of the old models that people were using for role play purposes. So that market's gone. And the role players are gonna start using Chinese models because the DeepSeek API is very cheap, and even companies that have online role play, whatever, they're connected to the DeepSeek API. And then Google also has a free tier API, I'm pretty sure. I think it's still active. So OpenAI is like in this weird spot where everybody knows its name, everybody knows it's relatively powerful, but then a lot of the use cases people have for it, you're better off somewhere else. Even someone like us two, if we want news, I think we're better off using either Gemini or Perplexity at this point. Perplexity has been designed for like gathering news and citing internet sources for years before, like literally I want to say like 2 years before OpenAI could even connect to the internet at all with its AI system. So
I want to add something in, and this is kind of the normie section of it. So I was looking at the new pricing, and so right, they had the 2000. Sorry, I'm thinking in yen, guys. The $20 a month is now like your plus, right? and they've come down to about, I'd say about $8 a month, right? But if I remember correctly, you get more, example, for like from Google at the same price point. And so like this is not to big up Gemini. This is like what normies look at, right? Like, oh, I could use the best model, but it says like more messages, longer memory, whereas Gemini's like you have access to Flow, to Whisk, to Notebook LM,
Notebook
and a
LM
storage
is so based. Sorry, keep going, but it's based.
and a storage of 200 gigabytes. Like, and it's the same price.
Yeah, Gemini is gonna end up winning it for the normies, I'm pretty sure. For the people who just like want to hop on, because actually, yeah, you're totally right. So I'm assuming, I haven't seen this deal, but what you're saying is, if you were to buy like 200 gigabytes, if you were to rent, let's be real, if you were to rent 200 gigabytes of storage a month, that comes with an upgraded Gemini.
Yeah, you get the Gemini app, you get the most capable model.
Yeah, they're cooked. It's cooked. Because I think a lot of people who have Android devices, they get that annoying notification about increasing your storage. So if with that comes Gemini, then why not use Gemini? It's pretty good, Gemini.
Yeah, like we're talking normally, like if you're not into AI, of course, like skip all of this. But I'm talking like realistically, people use AI and they use it for whatever, which I know ChatGPT is like, we have our set uses you want to use it for. But I'm sorry, it just looks like Google wins on this one. And honestly, they do the whole like tempt you with, why don't you start for $4.99 a month and see if you like it?
Would you say, so stepping away from the money side, would you say like what are the optics here? Because in the case of Gemini, it's by Google, and Google is almost 100% definitely a government, like a government supported or connected. And by government, I mean like the deep state level government. Like this has just obviously been rumored, but there's a lot of evidence for it. And OpenAI is like, it's almost like they were vying to be that, and they were vying publicly to be that in order to increase their stocks and overall evaluations, I would say.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm gonna say this, and people can take this any way they want, but I honestly feel like this is the problem, and it's Sam Altman.
Bruh. So this is like a Zuck type situation where everybody was like,
I think it is a Zucker situation because Google has these contracts, but they are smart enough to not act like it's their flagship thing.
Interesting. So it's almost, I would say, and you know what, now that you mentioned, let's throw in Elon Musk into this. It seems like the cult of personality style of doing business, which is quite popular in Silicon Valley, probably inspired by Steve Jobs, is actually a detriment to people who are just in the general zeitgeist of what are those nerds doing now kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna like put this in and then talk about why I think that they're all doing it wrong. Is one of the things that's happening to ChatGPT is, I guess, the president, Greg Brockman, donated to a pro-Trump super PAC. There's the ICE integrating ChatGPT 4 and then the drop in quality, right? So there's that, and then I think the DOD thing. But here's the thing about like what I think this crop of guys gets wrong is we don't know Steve Jobs's like political beliefs. We don't know his like, and I mean like at the time he was doing this.
Yeah.
We didn't know his political beliefs. We didn't know his leanings. His whole thing was like, I run Apple and Apple is doing this for the youth. And of course, right, that's all fake.
Interesting. Yeah, of course everyone has
But
their own political leanings for sure.
But like Sam Altman, or as we talked about in Elon Musk, they don't just want to be the cult of personality. They want you to think they're cool.
So you're saying there's a cringe element to this?
And I don't think it's necessarily like that they're cringe, but that they're opening these kind of avenues that lead to more knowing about their personal beliefs. I mean, if their beliefs or not, that's up for debate, but doing stuff in a way that it's easier to be like, that's cringe, or like, I don't agree with you. Like, because using Elon Musk as the example, there was no way his cuddling up to Trump was gonna go well. And I say that as if he cuddled up to Biden, it wouldn't have gone well.
True.
Everyone would have been like, that shit's cringe.
True. Let me process
And
what you're
then-
saying. Yeah.
And then you get into the, well, what did you get out of it? Like, cuddling up to a government is never going to go over well, particularly with Americans, because we do have an anti-government string that runs through us.
Yeah. That's so true. Are you listening, both lefties, righties, communists, and liberals? You're like and libertarians. Like everyone's basically anti-government. To like some extent, that's so true.
To some
Okay.
extent, like,
Yeah.
you're anti-government, and that's not necessarily a bad or a good thing, but like, in these cult of personalities, they always are doing something that I'm like, that's cringe, or that's not gonna go well. And this new crop, like, I'm gonna connect it to something a little bit weird. If you look at pop stars, there are two types of pop stars that people are big fans of. One, the Beyonce types that are super quiet about their personal life, or the Cardi B who's always on the internet.
Mhm.
And like, the thing is that's what these tech guys are doing now, is they're all going the everything I'm going to talk super about, like, using my product and like how great I am. And I think that just doesn't go over well when you're a tech guy.
You know what's really funny to me is that I don't know why this isn't more common, or at least I don't see it, but I'm like more triggered by hypocrisy. Probably said this before, but it's like, for example, someone like let's say Elon Musk, or I would imagine Zuckerberg, and I would even imagine Sam Altman. You know, how right-leaning are they, or like how pro-Trump are they? Because I would almost say like all their actions obviously are swinging that way. But it's more like the reason that I find it personally cringe is because I kind of see it more as like a strategy to keep their companies afloat, or increase market share value, or increase that's how I see it. Because obviously, like, and I guess now that I think about it, I guess if I think about Elon Musk specifically on Twitter, he says some stuff that would probably place him more on the right for sure. But when I think about like Sam Altman, like, he's always very, aside from this whole thing we've been talking about, his involvement, the involvement of his company with the military industrial complex at all, he hasn't really shown any political leanings in that direction, which kind of goes to what you're saying too, which implies that, you know, had there been a Biden or a Harris or whatever in power right now, he would just be kind of sucking up to them too, which I kind of see as bad leadership. But I understand these people don't really look for leadership. They just kind of look for whoever can be flexible enough to make it work for the next financial year, is what it seems like. So in that case, he's doing a great job by securing government contracts, because that's probably what most businesses would love, where they would love to be at. But yeah, that part makes me cringe in particular.
But I think there's something that, like, particularly about Sam Altman, that makes him a little bit like closer to the Steve Jobs ideal, but still cringe. And I know that sounds weird to say after all I said, but for example, let me get this right. He was on a late night show and he literally said, I cannot imagine having gone through figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah.
And he talks about ChatGPT like, oh, I have to ask it everything. Like, I don't have a brain. I have ChatGPT.
Right.
And just, it hits me as so cringe. And also, like, so there's no real use for ChatGPT. Like, we've been raising newborns long before there was AI, bro.
True.
Like, because here's the thing. They talk about, like, LLM solving stuff that AI will solve, but not LLM AI.
What do you mean?
So if you go into business, they're talking about LLMs for like the average employee. But when you get into like what they're talking about for solving cancer, for example, they're talking about things like machine learning or picture analytics, which is not what LLMs do.
Interesting.
And so like, that's one of the things that it's like, LLMs are not what these guys say, and they promote them and people use them, but they don't use them to solve big problems. They use them for fun shit.
Yeah, there's something I think I pick up what you're laying down, because for me, the LLM's situation, their use cases have kind of already hit. Okay, for years and years, I just use LLMs literally just as like role play and writing and like creative, like going back and forth, because you could like you could experiment with prompts and stuff like that. I never really saw them as a way to solve anything in particular, or like, yeah, I was gonna solve the future. But then what ended up happening was they increased the token length, which means you could shove longer prompts into it, and so now LLMs became a way to parse large amounts of data, to have a conversation with large amounts of data. But then that was like very unstable, so they switched over to a thing where you could like convert the data into a database called a RAG database. And so that improved things slightly, but it still didn't really, like, it could cite what it's looking at, but it still didn't really fix that. And then now we have like you were saying, these visual systems, like these kind of visual AIs, but they're doing much the same thing. I guess by AI, now we can get more technical. We're talking about generative AIs. And ultimately, each one, like the current functionality we have is only due to the advancement of other technologies. So even just having something like where the LLM itself is connecting to a search engine, and now it's using another technology to parse the HTML it receives into an appropriate format for it to decode. And it's amazing. It does it like so fast. It does it within seconds. But you're right, actually. This isn't really LLM anymore, is it? This is more like LLM plus like a bunch of other things in concert. And now it's all being packaged because, the customers do complain. Governments have expectations. And they're like, well, why can't it do this? If it's the so-called artificial intelligence, then why isn't it intelligent enough to do this? And yeah, from the technical perspective, a lot of it is just they're just kind of patchworking stuff. It's held together with band-aids, something like that.
I think it's held together with band-aids, but also I think that, like, when we talk about this stuff, we talk about data sets a lot. And so, like, LLMs don't police their data sets.
Right, which is why you would want them connected to other stuff. But even that other stuff, who's to say that other stuff is any better as far as data goes? And at the same time, you still have to keep improving the way that the LLM parses that data. That could probably keep being refined over and over again. And then you have to balance that out between, especially the role players. They expect the data to be presented in a kind of casual way, and then the nerds just want it like in a list format. Like for me, like I most often just want things in a straight up table, like a robot. Just give me a table, left and right, mark it, give me a graph. But interesting.
And
yeah.
And I think it's not necessarily like that these are separate, because I'm pretty sure generative AI is built on machine learning and deep learning and things like that. But the use cases are so different in some cases. And like the LLM is like your thing that you can make an everyday product, which is why it's king right now. But like you said, we're not using it for, lack of a better term, real shit.
Well, I think the counter argument, the most recent counter example is apparently someone hacked the Mexican government using Anthropic Claude like a few days ago. They got like 150 gigabytes worth of data, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's literally just all text files, and that's a lot of information.
No, that's a lot of information with government.
Yeah, and the way they did it was because Anthropic has actually touted itself for a long time that they wouldn't. I think I'm saying it right. Yeah, Anthropic. I'm thinking about the right company, but Anthropic has touted itself as saying that they won't release a bottle until it's passed certain security checks, safety measure checks, and I think that was mainly to appease the Europeans, who are always, for better or worse, sometimes better, are always really loud about this. And so there's this concept called jailbreaking, where you essentially convince the AI to just spit it out. And so someone did that. They were just like, I think the way, for pro tip, I'm sure it'll get patched, so it doesn't matter. But the way the guy did it, or person did it, I'm sure they had an anime profile picture, whoever it was. The anime profile picture hacker, they basically said, well, this is for a bug bounty program. This isn't like, I'm not doing anything illegal here. And so the AI was like, okay. And then it helped him. But even then, I still agree with you, though, because I would say that even though it quote unquote hacked the Mexican government, it was probably just running through a list of already existing known vulnerabilities. So I doubt that it was like generating a vulnerability, like creating like a vulnerability. I do imagine there is a way to use AI to brute force into like finding a vulnerability, but that would of course only be based off pre-existing vulnerabilities. And I guess the counter to that is, well, when we as regular engineers are also trying to hack, of course we're going to look at the history of vulnerabilities that already exist, but there is still a disconnect, I would say, between the quote unquote human creativity versus like the AI actually doing something. Because that's what you're saying, right? You're saying that the AI itself isn't really generating anything super novel and original.
Not yet. And I want to say that like I'm pretty like not a proponent of using AI as much as you. In fact, I'm kind of on the don't use it side.
Mhm.
But I think that what is promised is literally a pipe dream. And not in the sense of that like AI can't create music or whatever, but like that's not what people wanted AI for.
What do you think they wanted it for?
Well, if you go back into like the original promises of what technology would do for us, it would remove us from menial work that is useless so that we could focus on creative work. And that's where humans shine, is creative work. And I'm not necessarily just talking about like music or writing. I'm also talking about like creative solutions.
Right. I think what comes
And
to mind.
so
Oh, go ahead.
LLMs are like, no, we're going to take over that part. And humans can do this mediocre, boring work. And I think that's wild.
Yeah, I mostly agree, especially in terms of the average thing that we do, but the average
Well,
thing that most people do.
I'm
I
talking
was
about
gonna
this
say,
in terms of what the companies promise, not necessarily like what
oh, okay,
AI can do or what we
I see,
would do.
I see, I see. Right, okay, okay, I see what you're saying. So they sold it as a kind of you're about to be liberated from your menial existence of labor, and instead it's more like you're about to be on the streets because
Yeah.
we've replaced your yeah. The thing that came to mind was, it's so interesting. The thing that came to mind was there are robots that will like, they can use drones or you could use like actual wheeled robots that go in fields, and they'll use an AI system to like identify weeds, and they'll just like, shoot a laser at it to kill the weed. So you could technically grow, you could have a whole field, you could have a whole harvest without using any pesticide. That's like super cool when I think about it. Then they're using the kind of visual model for recognition, for recognizing stuff, and which it needs to be trained, which is, yeah, what you were saying, deep learning. It's so funny how words just disappear. Deep learning neural networks, like all of it's just gone, being replaced by one stupid word that people can invest in, which has always been the
Pretty
problem, by
much.
the way. Which has always been the problem. Like even when I think someone had said that the word AI is just a funding category, which is exactly what I think the criticism that we kind of shared with OpenAI is. It's like you just keep using AI over and over again, and then you'll receive funding because you can make a bunch of like, you what'd you call it, pipe dream
Yeah, it's
promises.
pipe dream.
Yeah, but the technology is there and it is advancing. But you know what's funny to me is that doesn't mean anything. Like we have solutions to so many things, and we either lack technical people, we lack permission to do it because of regulation. I'm not really super libertarian or anything, but it's just true. And then the other thing is we lack incentive for these companies because they would rather make money. Obviously, they're not actually there to serve necessarily.
Well, yeah. And I think that they see content generation as a cheap way to make money, which is why they're
Facts.
invested in like novels, art, things like that. They're like, it's easy to generate and we can make money. And they miss kind of, and this is, sorry, I'm going to get real philosophical and like whimsy. They miss the point of why the fuck we make these things.
Yeah, like okay, like for me, if I was like the whole king of the world type thing, the moment I heard a robot can just like kill weeds, all right, well, guess what we're about to do? We're about to make a robot that we're about to replace all of the pesticide, so my people aren't just consuming glyphosate they can't wash off, or that they forget to wash off. And these robots are about to improve everyone's health by a little bit. And while we're at it, why not have like let's return gardens into the mix, and we could optimize water, since everyone's complaining about water shortages and like, oh, we're using too much water to feed our grass. All right, well, not if we have an optimized system with sufficient sensors, which have existed for like 30 years. We just set up like sensors, we just set up a timing system, we'll set up some kind of intelligence so we could all have beautiful gardens and flowers and live in fucking peace. No, that there's like no incentive to do any of that. The incentive is the glyphosate pesticides are still cheap, it's better to just tell people to cut their water supply so that Nestle can go grow chocolate or whatever. That's not even real chocolate anymore in California, and then just blame it on people for taking more than like 5-minute long showers. It's there's a
In the
disconnect here.
future, we won't need to make music or art or anything because the AI will make it for us, which once again misses the point of why we make art.
And it's actually, here's a connection back to you had mentioned pop stars. There's actually a connection here, which is, you know, a musician, the artist, the artiste. You know, there are these people who can connect to the muses and summon these kind of beautiful works of art from the Platonic realm or what have you. And that's why we like them, because we see them as these kinds of connections, these people that can connect to higher forces that are always there, that are just made of like math and made of notes and things that they in particular can put together. And when we listen to their work or when we experience their art, we also feel like, so, you know, we feel happy and we feel a kind of resonance. Think think about all those songs that people still sing, like Papa Roach, that what's that one lady? Eva, the how can you see into my, that stuff.
Evanescence.
Evanescence. Like people like even if it's cringe, even if it's just memes, like everybody knows like what they were trying to pull out of their ass, out of the like I said, the Platonic realm or whatever. But like the main criticism of like pop idols, like someone like Taylor Swift or like these newer people, I don't have a beef with any of them, but just criticisms I've seen online, it's just like how artificial it feels. And of course this K-pop gets this critique a lot. It's like these people just feel manufactured. Well, if that's the general trend, then what's stopping, you know, the next crop of idols from being all AI generated, quote unquote, perfections? So you're totally right. We're about to strip out the creativity, even out of that point too. So
Well, it leads to a question that I've heard float around, and I don't see that happening anytime soon, which is that dealing with people will become premium.
yeah, I mean, Japan is almost like a test for that, I would say. Because in Japan, unlike what maybe some people think, you could walk around like I could walk around dressed as like I could walk around dressed like Goku, and no one's gonna say anything to me. Like they'll look and they'll stare, but no one's gonna bother me. It's very unlikely someone will come up to me, ask for a picture. No one's gonna shout anything. Maybe a child would, but I could just walk around in full cosplay, and then I could go eat ramen, and I'd never have to interact with anyone. I just push a button, the ramen appears in front of me basically. And I don't really see a reason for society to not kind of become like that in every quote unquote first world nation. Like it's just going to be like very optimized. You can have food delivered to you. I had the Indian food delivered to me last night, for example. Like there's very little reason to interact with humans. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think there'll be very little reason to interact with humans, but some people think that you will pay premium to interact with humans in the future.
Like what? Like what's an example?
Like, so I'm going to use I don't remember their example, so I'm going to use a different example. But like, let's talk about language learning. So for language learning, especially as a beginner, you can do so much without ever talking to another person.
Facts.
And that's only going to increase.
Right.
But at some point, you're going to want to talk to a person. And so the question is do you go out in the wild and talk to people, or do you pay premium for an instructor to correct you and make you feel comfortable? And the question is that really going to happen? Because right now we pay dirt for people.
I see. Yeah. You know, it made me think about like the kyabakura culture out here, which is where a bunch of, the stereotype would be something like a bunch of dirty old men pay to talk to like maybe like an early 20s woman, and she's all dolled up and maybe showing cleavage sometimes, but not always. Usually they're just like shiny and glittery and very feminine, and they kind of pretend to be interested in whatever the hell you have to say, and they'll sit near you. I haven't gone, by the way, but I'm assuming this is what I've seen and has been reported to me. I think I got dragged by one of those like Nigerian solicitors. So like I was outside of one, like they brought us to the door and we could see what was going on inside. But yeah, I've never actually have partaken in the service. I would have like multiple episodes on it if I had. But anyways, that's already happening is what I'm saying. Like no one wants to talk to like a 40s, 50 something year old Japanese man in general out here. And so they're just like, they gotta pay premium to interact with a person. And so probably for better or worse, for worse probably, they'll pay for it to be like a young woman. And she's like, all right. And then I hope they get paid well. I think they certainly charge a lot. I don't think they get paid well though, if I have to be realistic. But maybe something like that too would account to the whole humans are a premium type thing.
I think so, because I think it's coming. Because I was listening to a podcast and they talk about how people still, when you call in to the helpline, right, you're supposed to talk to the automated service, but they just say representative.
That's a good point.
And like, how long until that changes and like humans aren't available, or to get to the human, you have to pay premium?
That's a good point. I think I saw an X post maybe where it was like they called and it was clearly an AI, but after they finished assisting them, they were like, hey, by the way, are you an AI? And the AI was like, ho, 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 no, I am not an AI. And then the person was like, okay, well, what's like 436 times 37? And then it just answered, and it's like, okay, you're an AI. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
I think there is a happy ending though somewhere. It's a lonely ending still because humans are being cut away from other humans and are more into like the simulacra of what a human could possibly be. But it's funny how science fiction novels they really have covered this to some extent. I'm thinking in particular the Culture series of books. Stephen Banks maybe. The first book features believe a woman. She's out hiking somewhere and she gets an injury and she doesn't need to hike because it's basically that pipe dream world that we're being sold right now. So, but she's just out there kind of challenging her human nature and she gets injured, but she's basically fine. She's just kind of messed up. And obviously, once she reaches civilization, they'll be able to fix her right up. But the entire time she's talking to her like floating robot assistant, and it has a sense of humor, which is already doable with the current AI. And it's connected to the overall, whatever, the network it's connected to. And I think that's basically the best case scenario. The best case scenario is like you're some kind of elite that you don't have to do it. Maybe another example would be a Brave New World, 1920s novel. Everybody should read it, by Aldous Huxley. And in that one, the people don't have to work, but they still make them work as a form to kind of like include some kind of suffering. So like at the time, it was like, so where did you work? It's kind of like you go to work instead of university. And I was like, so where did you work? And he was like, oh, well, I was working at the comb factory. And it was pretty rough, man. Those combs. And it's just like, it's not even really necessary. And then I guess another argument has been made, I've seen, I think mainly by, what's the thing? People who hate women? Misogynists?
Misogynists?
Yeah. I think I've seen another argument made, which is something like a lot of jobs, especially in the office, just kind of seem unnecessary. Of course, they're talking about like HR jobs or like all of these, what would you call them? Like more like social, like kind of keeping the cohesion of the workers there. Essentially, I think they want to go back to like, you're just like being yelled at by your boss and being called derogatory words, but at least that way you don't have to deal with HR. So something like that. But
I think that's an interesting point, because like removing all these things that we use that are just human.
Yeah.
Or I guess they would say efficiency, but your mileage may vary there.
Definitely. I think we definitely take for granted a lot of the comforts we have because they need not be there, by the way. Like the weekend wasn't always a thing. The Christians and Jewish people, they had like their one day off or whatever. That's not exactly a weekend. And
although I think the interesting thing is, because there's still like the utopian ideas coming out. I know we're like in overtime, but once you cut this, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Which is like UBI and the whole dream. But I feel like, because there's the running joke of like AI means actually Indian. How much of that is going to be like certain countries have UBI and this kind of comfort, and other countries are slaving away to make sure that these machines work?
Human labor is still cheap. And like I said, we've had technology to improve crops, to make sure everyone can have their own cute little garden, even in drought areas. Instead of putting any money there, we just kind of use brute force techniques because those work. And when you mentioned that, the first thing I thought of was like getting shrimp onto your plate. Like it relies on like a lot of like straight up slave labor in Southeast Asia and the Pacific and stuff. And no one says anything about that. Like that's a lot of enslaved people that are just out there trapped on literal boats with no succor to ever get them out, no hope to ever get them out. And and all their work just leads to me being able to order a shrimp from the local sushi spot. Does it need to be that way? Like obviously no. It just happens to be the cheapest way. So maybe we could wrap it all up by connecting it to the beginning, which is like, you know, the value of your community, the value of being aware of the things around you. It doesn't mean you have to save the whole world, but you should certainly be aware to the extent that you could hopefully at least prevent it in your community, and in the near future have a goal to help prevent it around the world, because it's our world, guys. We only have the one for now.
Well, I'm gonna say something that's a little bit less, I don't know, one worldish, in that we're humans, and humans thrive in community. We're community-based animals.
Facts. Wow.
So
I guess
you
we're
need
never
to
using
stay
AI.
connected.
I guess we're done with AI.
I mean, you could make your artificial community, but I don't know how much that's gonna like maintain your sanity, because AI psychosis is a thing.
Ooh, let's leave that for the next episode. I'm sure we'll have lots of examples by then.
I'm sure we will.
But thank you guys for listening. This may or may not be a long episode. We'll see how much hacking and slashing I do. But hope everyone has a good March 2026.